promise you this is the last time you see me on this stage. I'm sorry. And I don't have any remote control, so I will sit like normally and we'll start now. So, we are now going from Australia and North Africa to Italy, actually the northeast part of Italy in the Alpine region. And the results that you will see in a while are coming from like a major work, actually research on the Neolithisation of the Adige Valley, which was in part of my PhD, and actually there in the Alpine in Trento, it's like one of the major research issues. So this was just part of this bigger wide research. So the Neolithisation is something which happened like elsewhere in Europe at the end of the 6th and the beginning of the 5th millennium BC in Italy. And actually, why is the Alps and the Alpine region important for this? Because better than in other regions of Italy, here we can see a very important presence of the Mesolithic. So we have important local groups that were there, and there is sort of continuity in the present of people there from the early to the early Neolithic. So we can in a way follow the changes and the processing better than in other places in Italy. So, but also what is particularly important and actually interesting in this area is that it seems that there, like elsewhere, the Mesolithic had a kind of active role in the formation and definition of the first Mesolithic in the region. And this has been kind of interpreted on the basis of different markers, like, for example, techno-topological similarities in Neolithic industries, in the ornamental tradition, which, as you can see here, it's based on shells, which are very common during the Mesolithic, so you have a sort of continuity in the choices. And also, for example, this is a very famous portable art piece coming from the site that we will see in a while. It's called the Riparo Gaban, and it's so in Trento it's very important because actually it kind of synthesized this kind of gradual and acculturative process as they see the Neolithisation there, because it's like a very typical Neolithic figure, like a sort of female with like this shoulder, which is very typical of this early Neolithic period, but is done on very wild animal tissue. So it's coming from a red deer, metapodial, done with very Mesolithic techniques, joined together with abrasion, which is very typical of the Neolithic. And the use of ochre is also very Mesolithic and forager-like. So it's a kind of synthesis of this interpretation of this process. And also, for example, the uses of anthulexes, which are very typical of the Mesolithic, but instead of having polished stone axes, they are going on also in the early Neolithic to use the wild-bending axes. So at the same time, you have new types which appear at in the early Neolithic, and for example, this is the Riparo Gaban viewing, which marks the early Neolithic period in the region. And we've also had differences in the dimension and asymmetry of the microliths. You have new types like rhomboids. So you have kind of mixture of triplets that we kind of have the possibility to investigate. And actually to kind of try to understand the dynamics of this Mesolithic transformation, I was carrying out the analysis, but it was like a sort of decision, a common decision to go for studying trapezes, as Liz was saying, just also to simplify the life. So, but why trapezes? Because anyway they are very much characterizing both the Late Mesolithic and which is constituted by the Castlemovian culture, and the early Neolithic sites in all the Adige Valley, so they are a good proxy for this. But at the same time, they are a sort of category, technological category in which you can in a way try to to understand if any kind of technological functional differences and changes were taking place. Because in many sites they have been analyzed, and the multitasking nature of these tools have been demonstrated. They have been used as prototype points, but at the same time as composite knives, so as pieces of other kind of multitasking tools. So we thought that starting the study from trapezes to understand the kind of possible changes or continuities in the techno-functional choices in the region would have been a good starting point. So just synthesize here what I was talking about now. So, trapezes from where? From Riparo Gaban, which is one of the most important sites in the Adige Valley. And actually, in the Adige Valley, you have, as I said, like different sites with showing this continuity in the stratigraphy from Mesolithic to the Early Neolithic. And you have Riparo Gaban, you have, for example, Romagnano, which is very much known in the area. And in Gaban Valley, you have this very high stratigraphic remnant of more than 6 meters of length. Here, the stratigraphy and the chronology from the site shows you how deep is the presence of the human presence in the site, and we just focus on, as I said, this transitional layers and stratigraphy. Actually, of all the site, which is very wide, it's more than 360 square meters, we just focus on one sector, which is the best preserved, and less holes were present in the stratigraphy. So we just relied on this sector 4, where the stratigraphic remnant was also present, so that to follow the stratigraphy in a better detail. So actually here are just to let you see the level E, which is related to the Castellonian presence, and the Early Neolithic is D, with a total of more or less 10 cuts, and a total of a number of trapezes for that part, which is 181. And the majority of these trapezes is just located in transitional, just in the middle, from the Early Late Mesolithic to the Early Neolithic, the major concentration. So I'm here reporting only the functional and functional analysis of these trapezes, but anyway, a technological analysis has been carried out, and so we of course know the raw material was mainly gray and red flint, probably biancone and scaglierosa from the Cinemonte, which are like just a bit more in the south of the region. And also we were able to see that there were not major discontinuities in the way these trapezes were made in the selection of the bladelets from which they were made. So the sections were actually similar, trapezoidal and yes, trapezoidal, and also the orientation. So the technological choice how to make the trapezes, the orientation of the trapezes along the blades were actually very similar in the two periods. The technique, it's typical for the production of trapezes, is the macro-gearing technique, and which, as you probably know better than me, it's like to create some notches on a little bladelet, and then these notches, that kind of like with a sort of twisting action, helps you to fracture the bladelet and to create like geometrical pieces, but also what is for a long time been defined as a waste manufacturing, waste, the micro-gearing, but actually from a very preliminary analysis is been probably used as well in a different activity. Talking about the typology and the reduction sequence, as Kate was showing us before, actually different types from the previous typological analysis of trapezes and microliths from the region show different types, but actually it was demonstrated by the technological analysis that many of these differences in the morphology were probably due to the reshaping and adjustment of the parts of the basal parts, and also this part of the trapezes due to the use accidents and life of the trapezes. So, but anyway, the morphological analysis would show that at least these 8 different shapes were present. And among these, the first 2 and 6 were the most common in the assemblage, in both the layers, so in both the big trenches of Mesolithic and Early Neolithic. So, which kind of analysis and methodology has been applied? As you will see, there is a kind of standardization, as you will soon see, in the use of these trapezes as part of projectile technology. So the interpretation has been based on literature on impact traces and afting traces, of course, to kind of understand the way that the choices in the way they were afted. At the same time, also experimental results made also on different kind of points. Actually, I have to be honest, not that direct experimental activities has been carried out on the trapezes, but on other kind of points. I mean, experimental results that has been compared to what we had for the trapezes. At the same time, both the traces and the usable traces and residues that have been found have been plotted on a polar coordinate system, and of course discussed on the basis of the way they were distributed. As for the residues, actually a more archaeometric analysis has been carried out, also considering that a very hard chemical washing was, they were washed with chemicals for the analysis. So actually we preferred to go for an optical microscopy analysis for locating the residues, and environmental scanning microscope for together with a matching analysis with ADX and in situ FTIR analysis of the residues. The results were compared to referential standard actual reference collection, which have been created experimentally on the basis of archaeological and archaeobotanical information from the site and from the region, and compare also to this very nice database online where you can find spectra from different materials. So now here I will just show the main traces. As I told you, these trapezes were mainly used for, actually there is a kind of standardization in their use as part of projectile points, composite projectile points. And I mean, here there are the main classical fracture for impact scars for impacts. So you have snap bending in a different location. So you have on top of what is called the point of the trapezes, as well as, of course, linear features, and they were very due also to the nice color of the red scalia rossa. It was also possible to locate and to distinguish them very, very well. Also with and also, of course, the distribution was also plotted. And as for the afting macros, you have, of course, different kind of afting. What it was interesting to notice that, as you can see there, they were also located on the long edge of the trapezes, as well as on this short edge and in this part. So it was kind of telling us the way they were hafted. Here, another kind of scars, and most of this interpretation about the afting was actually carried out in the comparison with lots of works on hafting techniques. So. There were also friction Gaussian striae, and they were actually plotted on the same draft of the trapezes, and they were actually matching with the other scars and fracture due to afting. So let's go to the residues, and okay, it was clear that there was some ochre because it was even after this like very important chemical washing, they were actually very clear, and they were just located on the draft. And this ochre was, of course, hematite, and also there was a presence of calcite. And this was interpreted by the engineer who was carrying out this analysis as white pigments, talking about the calcite. So, and probably this calcite has been also, he was talking about a way of enhancing this color, because from other analysis, for example, of frescoes and also Roman paintings, but also in the same venues that you saw before at the beginning, there was the similar presence of this like white pigments and calcite, and it was kind of a layer at the bottom of the red painted surface. So we found it here again, and it was kind of interpreted as something related to this enhancing of the red color. At the same time, we found also traces of adhesive on top of the parts which were showing, as you will see, after the afting traces, and this has been measured with the ADX spectrum as an organic, of course, residue, but the FTR analysis shown that what was in the adhesive was bitumen, a natural bitumen, and I am sorry, I'm not a specialist. Maybe still I would have helped better things about this residue, but anyway, the present was clear bitumen, natural bitumen, on the basis of these two little peaks at this frequency on the spectrum. At the same time, matching experimental and archaeological spectra, it was clear that this natural bitumen was kind of mixed together with beeswax. And again, these two peaks are clearly demonstrated the presence of beeswax. And comparing just before here, you didn't have any traces of the red ochre in the bitumen. So sorry, on this. So it was clear that these two residues, even if like overlapping together in the same parts of the after part, as it was clear from the plot, from the distribution patterns, they were not mixed together, as it happened before in Northern Africa, but also in Sibudo, we saw this, but in other areas also we have the same use of ochre and resina just as a kind of mixture to make the adhesive more efficient, but in this case they were absolutely not unrelated and not mixed. So this is me. Sorry for not calling this so cool, but anyway. So here you can see how the residues are absolutely overlapping, and actually the reconstruction, even if it's not so good in terms of capability in drawing, but you can see how, on the basis of the location and the types of macro fracture, you have, of course, the use of trapezes on top with a little like wing coming probably out of, because languette and other burin-like traces were present on the end of the long edge, but at the same time probably they were also used as barbs, so like in a composite way. So not to bother you only with the trapezes, it was interesting to notice the presence of beeswax, because actually we were looking for markers and information about a sort of continuities about for the Mesolithic and Neolithic, but actually we found some kind of continuities with the late Paleolithic presence in the region, because the use of ochre in this case, like clear aesthetic or actually not functional, not utilitarian scope, was clear in other contexts of the region. For example, here there is just as a evocation here, like the use of red deer canines, where residue, patterning, and distribution are clearly and connected with the location of the use, where in the red deer canine hole it was clear that a specific kind of suspension pattern was used with red colored strings, and at the same time the use of beeswax, it's widespread in the region. For example, I'm showing here one example of mobiliar, of portable art and painted stones from the same shelter, Riparo Gaban, which is kind of late Pedrottian present in the region. And here, in this actually high altitude site, it's more than 1,200 meters, they found more than 250 probably 67 painted stones, just like with like peculiar distribution to get close to a dwelling hut. So, and part of this stone, painted stone, were treated with beeswax before being painted. So the use of beeswax was used to enhance and to fix the painting on these stones. At the same time, the use of beeswax and the connection with the ochre, it's shown in other contexts, in burial contexts. And here, there is just one burial. This is, we were talking about the end of the Paleolithic. Here we are watching the burial of Mamelon de Sola, which is Castelnovian, and again, high altitude. It's more than 2,150 meters in the Dolomites, and they found this perfectly preserved burial. And here you see it was like a full equipped hunter, and in the great goods you have different kind of probably bags containing his toolkit, like all the tools he needed for, like from the retouchers for indirect percussion on flint to napper to hammers, and then on the left you have ochre, and even if it's not position on the draft, together with ochre there was some kind of bee product, and they didn't perform a specific analysis on the remain, which was like substantial, like it was heavy, I mean it was big, and probably we can talk about beeswax again, even if we know that it's like a big product. The archaeobotanist was talking about properly on the basis of the presence of pollens, but no specific FTR air analysis had been performed, so we cannot be sure. And also in Epigravettian, as Laura Longo was telling us yesterday, another Epigravettian burial was showing the presence of ochre, but at the same time a mixture of beeswax and resin in the hafting technique. So actually there is we can just go to the conclusion and see that of course there is a sort of continuity with the functional choices connected to the use of geometric microliths between the late Mesolithic and Early Neolithic at Riparo Gaban, and actually there were no differences both in the technology and in the function of these microliths used as part of projectile points in both periods. At the same time, the presence of ochre in the way tools were afted are showing clearly how some aesthetic aspects, which were not directly related to the use of this tool, have been, of course, found, and which were absolutely unrelated to the composition of the hafting adhesive. And actually, this use of ochre and beeswax, which was part of the hafting, has actually roots in the late glacial period of this region. And as I showed you in ornaments and of late Mesolithic, of late Epigravettian and Mesolithic settlements, and as well as in portable art of the same region and the same period. So we can also say that this is another important information, that, for example, the use of ochre, which we have seen that characterize actually the Upper Paleolithic presence in the region, actually does not characterize the newly formed Neolithic communities in the region. For example, there is another important site in Veneto, Lugo di Grezzana, and has the same trapezes, but at the same time you don't have the presence of ochre on top of that. So there is kind of more. We just have to probably to shift our interest in previous periods for this presence in the region. So, thank you very much.